I'm good.
All right, go ahead. All right, Joe, you can go ahead.
Hey, Trey. This is Joe. I'm on My Superior Self.
Joe, thank you so much for joining. Just read your second book. We're not done yet, Pop. My Lessons from the Other Side. Joe, I think this is an amazing book. And I'm not just saying that because I read this and it is very touching. It's very moving. And to write about your journey through you losing your son, I can't thank you enough for sharing that.
Well, you know what? I really appreciate you help me spread Christopher's story, because that's what I'm supposed to be doing right now. You know, I've been had a horrible tragedy and was giving an ability to connect because of that tragedy to my son and make a difference. And that's what I intend to do.
Sure. So why don't you give everybody some context about what happened to
Sure.
Christopher, how you were able to explore other ways of communicating with him.
Sure. You know, my son, it'll be 6 years, January 3rd. Yeah, it'll be 6 years. It was the last weekend of spring break or Christmas break, and all the boys were home from college. My boy was a 21-year-old boy. He had the best of the worst of my wife and I. He was good looking, looked like Brad Pitt. My wife's very pretty, and he had a little bit of a wild colonial boy that he gets from my side, and kind, fun-loving. And so the last weekend, they decided to go up to a friend's lake house in Lake Beulah, Wisconsin, which is about an hour and a half. I live on the North Shore of Chicago, about an hour and a half north. And, they were going to kick up their heels a little bit, shoot pool at a local bar. There was a dozen of them. Go back to the house, finish the party. At 3 a.m., 4 of the boys walked outside, saw a boathouse, do what boys do, opened it up, saw a 3-man canoe, 4 boys with layered clothing, Timberland boots unlaced, which comes into play later on after I've talked to a medium, untied Timberland boots, layered clothing, partially frozen lake, and a snoot full of alcohol, paddled out on the lake, and none of them made it back. I got a call around noon that day. I was waiting for Christopher to come home. I grew up in Buffalo when we were going to watch the Bills game. And I was waiting for him to come, and I texted him a few times. And I got a text from the kid whose parents owned the house, and the parents weren't there. It was just the kids, and said, "Mr. McHugh, Chris and 3 friends are missing." So I grabbed the dog and put on some boots and jumped in the Jeep and headed up. And halfway up, I got a call from the lad's uncle who lived a few houses down. And he said, "Ms. McQuillen, it's no longer a search, but a recovery. All 4 boys had drowned." You kind of go into shock a little bit, Trey. It's just the way it is. But you have a responsibility, and I kept driving, and my mind flashed back to 16 years before. I went and saw a medium. Now, there was no real sense of urgency in my life. My parents had died in their 70s. Nothing, I mean, not too early, but not out of line, and so there was no sense of urgency. But I think I went out of. Actually, I think I was probably supposed to go, but I thought I was going out of a spiritual curiosity. And there was very little of that in my life at that point. And she said to me, after a kind of a mundane reading, and I was getting ready to go, she said, "Your dad's here. And he's holding a caboose and telling you railroad." Now, if you look behind, I've got a railroad lantern on my dresser. My dad spent 40 years on the railroad. We had 10 kids, 5 boys. Every boy worked in college on the railroad. I stayed on afterwards as a brakeman on the railroad. When my dad was a yardmaster, I'd spend the night, Friday nights when he'd work the night shift. And to me, it was just like heaven, being with my old man. So all of a sudden the old man, says railroad. Now, he didn't give me any tips to, the lottery or the questions of the universe. He just told me he was there. So I kind of shelved that in my mental file cabinet. And 16 years later, when I'm driving up, after I'm told my son had drowned, I thought, wait a minute. If my old man is somewhere, if Iron Joe is somewhere, then my son is with him. I just got to figure this out. And that put me on the path to trying to figure it out between mediums and attending and research And, Bob Olson, who was an investigator on the West Coast, wrote an amazing book about, trying to figure out if the metaphysical did exist. And so my thought, I'd been a car dealer. I'd been in the car business for 30 years. So I was not exactly a naive guy, And so I figured, let's check this out. Let's try to figure this out. And if this is hokey BS, let's cross it off the list. But if there's something to this and it helps me connect with my son, let's keep this thing going forward. And it's been going forward for going on, 5+ years now.
Mm. So when did you start? When was that point for you? Like how long after Chris passed? Because Bob Olson, I have a buddy who lost a daughter. Was it 2 years ago, 3 years ago? And it's actually Bob that kind of pushed me down that path as well, because I remember my friend I was at his daughter's funeral and she was like 7 years old.
Oh,
Tragically died out of nowhere, like got sick and went to the hospital, never came out. And I remember going to his funeral and or her funeral, excuse me, and like talking to him afterwards, and like he was holding up. I don't know what my expectations were for a father who just lost a daughter, but like he was holding up fairly well in as far as my expectations. And he was on the side listening to Bob Olson about the afterlife. And it was like he was explaining life, not explaining, but like evidential, like evidence of like life after death. And it comforted my friend. And so I was like, well, I want to know what are you listening to? I want to read this. I want to know what's going on. And I started reading Bob Olson, and that led me down this, that started me down the path that I'm on now.
How's that a cool synchronicity? You and I hadn't talked about Bob Olson. It was one of the first books I read. You can probably tell, brush cut, broken nose, kind of a guy's guy.
Mm-hmm.
So, I didn't want to hear the frilly details of the metaphysical. I wanted to know the nuts and bolts, right? And
well,
that's
we also have a relationship with the railroad too. So I'm fourth generation railroader. So
no kidding.
Yeah. BLE, wow. All that. Yeah.
Yeah. My grandfather was a railroader.
Right?
Yeah. Here, hold on. That's the UTU pin with my son's fraternity pin.
That's awesome.
My dad was the local chairman for the UTU. He was the union guy. So that put me on a path that said, let's try to figure this out. And right after that, the following day, second day, I called the medium that I had met with 15 years before, and she had since relocated to Arizona. So we did a couple of phone readings, and she told me things that I would never be able to prove until I got the doctor's report, the coroner's report, right? She told me how he died. She told me about how he was feeling when he died. She told me how he was dressed. She had mentioned the Timberland boots unlaced. Like boom, 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 boom. And it was really amazing. Her name is Nancy Myers, and she's in Surprise, Arizona. I was out there for my son was working spring training 2 years ago, and I went out there and visited him, and her and I had lunch. And she's a good woman and a good medium. And but what happened is that, so I had a couple readings with her on the phone, which were nice. They were good, great evidence. But I'm greedy. I wanted to look into somebody's eyes as they're looking at my son. Even these interviews, Trey, I would much rather do a Zoom where I'm looking at you and I get the feedback from your face and your, whether this is, I need to re-explain something or bring it home more or skip over it, So I wanted to do something in person. So here's a crazy thing with Bob Olson again. I go online, Google, and I look up a medium and I'm looking for mediums near me, and I wanted to see the good reviews, and I saw a guy called Andrew Anderson, He's in Hoffman Estates, which is about 35, 40 minutes from my house on the North Shore. I made an appointment. Now, this is 6 months after Christopher had transitioned. And it turns out the website that I was looking to evaluate this cat was Bob Olson's website. Yet I didn't realize it was Bob Olson's website till I was almost done with the first manuscript. And I look back and I go, holy cow, that was Bob Olson's. So the 6 degree of Kevin Costner type stuff, and so I decided to go meet with this guy, made the appointment. I was a little nervous, going to see him in person. I mean, this was all pretty new. You got to realize, I didn't come in with an exposure to the metaphysical. I came in with a spirituality based on Catholicism, which is no knock. There's some good spirituality there, but it certainly doesn't dwell into the metaphysics. It really does, but we don't know that, and they explain it away. But actually, if you read the Bible, it does dwell into the metaphysics often. And so I made this appointment, and I did 2 things. The day I was leaving for the appointment, I ordered Amazon. I ordered some shamrock seeds. And what happened was Christopher was buried January 8th, 2016. And as you can, I'm in the Midwest, and it was, about 5 miles from the lake, and it was snowing and cold, and the ground was hard. And his godfather and I bought 6 plots. I'd take 3 for my wife, Chris, and I, and he would take 3 for his kids. And the woman said, where do you want him buried? And I said, well, that tree is nice. Maybe next to that tree, which was on the far end of the right. And she didn't want to spend a whole lot of time getting out of her Lexus, with her fur coat. She was happy inside with the heater. Never explained to me that Chris was being buried right next to another couple, even though we had 6 others, 5 other spots, to the left. So when the snow melted and I saw his grave was next to somebody else, I was a bit livid, I called everybody but the Pope, and actually, after some arm wrestling and whining and stomping my feet, we moved him over 1 plot. I'll occupy the one he was in, and he moved over. I'm so glad I did this. I was kind of given a sense that I should do this, and I kept saying, for half the price of reinterment, and I keep thinking, am I wasting money? Is this crazy? But I kept getting a higher voice just saying, just shut up, knucklehead, and do it. And I'm so glad, because I spend time at the grave. It's a wonderful place for me. We connect very, very closely there. So this day in June that I'm going to go see Andrew, I leave my house and I pick up this, I grab this brown braided leather bracelet, put it on. Chris had given it to me when he was 6, when we were at Disney World. And I picked up the shamrock seeds, stopped at the grave, moved the loose dirt around, planted the shamrock seeds, which still show up to this day, by the way, and went off to see Andrew Anderson. And Andrew knew my first name, didn't prepay, didn't do anything, and he said, your son's here. And he wanted to see pictures, Chris. And he said, 2 things. He said, he's beautiful. He does look like Brad Pitt, and he loves that we're calling him beautiful. He said, but he's happy here, and he wasn't always happy. There were moments he was down and dark, and we knew that, And he said, Chris also wants to acknowledge you wore his bracelet today. This was under a cuff, right? And he said, Chris also acknowledges that you planted something at his grave today. What was that? And I said, the shamrock seeds. So when I was talking to you off camera, and I said, there's a moment in all of our lives, you could have been the white cat, where we went from believing to knowing. That was the moment. I was 10 minutes, 15 minutes into an hour reading, and I had been given that kind of information, and the hits just kept coming. I never looked back. I still have a wonderful relationship with Andrew. I still see him as I'll go to spirit circles occasionally. He, asked me to come often, and especially when he thinks somebody could use maybe the story of if somebody, a guy lost his son 6 months before and was coming to the spirit circle from Nebraska. And he said, I'd really like you to show up. And he didn't tell me why. But it revealed itself. And that guy and I are now in contact and friends. So that started me on the path of, okay, let's keep this party going. Where do we go from here? Saw a bunch of mediums. Thomas John knocked me off my feet. World-renowned guys. Saw some local gals. Sherry Jewell's amazing. So it was. We saw people, 100 people in an audience, and they'd come up and start describing Christopher. So did you do a reading with Suzanne Giesman at all? Yeah, it's a great story about Susan Giesman. She's talk about straight up and down like 6 o'clock. Right? I mean, this woman was the retired assistant to the Joint Chiefs of Staff. She was a Navy commander. Right? If you look at me and say, "Wow, he doesn't seem woo-woo," look at her and you'd say, "Holy cow!" If they're picking a touch football, if I want another medium in a manhole with me, I want Giesman, because I know we're getting out. You know what I mean? And so I actually stalked her on the first book. I sent her the first book when it was still rough. It was an unedited version. And she said, "Joe, I started reading it. I saw too many errors. I said, full stop. We went back to the editor and got it all completed, sent her to her. She goes, now I love your book." She said, "Not only that, I want you on my radio show. I want to interview you." And on the radio show, she said, "I'm going to call you in a couple of days. We're going to do a reading for Chris." And she just did that gratis, and it was an amazing. I'm a huge fan of hers. I often steal her line, a title of her book, when I'm signing autographs on my book. And I'll say, "Your kids are still here, still right here," when I'm talking to parents, because that's, people say, what's the message in one line? And I say, they're still right here.
Because she lost her stepdaughter, right?
She lost her stepdaughter, who was pregnant with her granddaughter. And she was at the time still with the Navy. And then she retired, and she does nothing but travel around the country, holding seminars, talking to people, helping them. Her and I stay in touch, and I think the world of her. And so I sent her this book, and I said, "If you like the book, I would love you to, write a little blurb on the back for me." And I was very complimented that she participated. I consider her a friend, and I think a brilliant talent, both as an author and as a medium.
Oh, I love her, man. She's like you said, she's you would think someone of her caliber, of her background, is very Newtonian, very, like you said, straight up and down, like right. very like it's black or white, right? Even her husband used to be, I think, a captain or something of a battleship or something like that. Like,
I know, right? They're a power couple.
Like, and now they're going, now they're going to Arizona.
They travel around the country in a Winnebago, She's cool. I really think she's cool. And I'm flattered that she liked both books very much and is kind of a fan of what Chris and I are doing.
Sure. So going back to that, so talk about you're channeling Chris, right, through meditation. Like, how did that come about? Like, when did that start developing, and what does that look like? That's
a great question. And all of it was none of this was by design, and none of it's original. Right. It really isn't. This is all, I think it's hysterical when they call this new age, right? Because, there's nothing new age. It's new to us. Right. But it's gone on for forever, that people have tried to connect with that spiritual side. So Chris and I had a really close relationship. And my heart was absolutely broken. There was a movie called Manchester by the Sea that I had seen before Christopher had crossed over. And it said, and she had lost kids in a fire. And she said, "My heart was broken, and it'll always be broken." And that's the way it is for parents who lost kids. Now, that doesn't mean we walk around like with a dark cloud, but there's a piece of us that'll never be the same until we cross over and connect. Anybody who said that time heals all wounds hasn't lost a kid. So, I wanted to know more. I wanted to feel more. I wanted to experience more and learn as much as I can. This became kind of a mission for me. So I started, this office was Christopher's bedroom. It was a happy place. This house was a happy home for us. And so I started getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning, every, once a week or whatever. And, couldn't get back to sleep. So I just come in this office. I'd light some sage, originally just candles, and meditate. Then I got from Andrew, I got a chakra. I got a chakra chart, right?
Mhm.
And then my friend Jen Weigel, who's like a Pied Piper around here for the metaphysical, talked to me about how to meditate using the chakra chart, where you breathe in, hold your breath for 7 seconds on every chakra level. And when you breathe out, say your son's name. Wayne Dyer talks about that too. And so I started doing that. I started reading things like from books like, Connecting with Spirit for Dummies. So I started coming in here, lighting candles, lighting sage, right? Putting pictures of Chris up, crystals. Now, dude, look at me. Do I look like a guy that would sit around with sage and crystals? But I am. I'm a different guy than I was prior to January 3rd, 2016.
Yeah, you got
And
two hockey jerseys behind you too. So
yeah, I just hung up my skates 2 years ago. 2 years ago, February. I'll have hung it up. I wanted to make it to 65. I made it to 63. Had a new hip, so I had to go. But so I'm not kind of a frilly guy, and so I'd come in here just to feel close to Chris, and I would. And on the anniversary of his crossing, January 3rd, 2017, and this is in the first book, it's covered. I went through the whole meditation thing. And all of a sudden I got a chill on the back of my neck, like I just got right now, which means he's here. He's around when I feel that. Right. And from work, I had a legal pad and a pen. And the legal pad was from Staples, and the pen was Andrew Anderson had given me a pen when I was at one of his guided meditations. It's called a Bic Velocity. I'm sure none of that matters, but I'm an old ball player, man. If I'm on a hitting streak, I'm not changing anything. Mm-hmm. So I still use the same pen, and they don't even make that pad anymore. I still have some bunch that I use. So all of a sudden I started getting downloads from him. It would be like in your head, your son talking, and he said, "Dad, you're not going to believe this place. It's incredible. The colors." He said, "It's friggin' amazing. The blues, the greens, you'd never believe it." And he said, "The air is it's never cold. The air is warm, but it's like love air. It surrounds you." And I was like, "What?" I'm writing all this down. I'm thinking like, did I just leave the reservation here? What the heck? I wrote 2 or 3 pages that day. And one of the things it said to me that day, he said, "Dad, you got to let go of the resentment. Scotty was my friend. I loved him. He loved me. You got to let go of that." And Scotty was the kid whose family owned the lake house. And since I had talked to you about making peace with God about the whole thing, I had to be mad at somebody. So I was mad at Scotty's parents and Scotty. Why? Could have happened at anybody's house, but I needed somebody to blame, right? I'm Irish. Irish Alzheimer's, so you forget everything but the grudges, And so I was mad at Scotty, and I held on to it. This is a year later. And I said, "Okay, Chris, for you, anything. I'll let go of that." But I wasn't ready to. Flash forward 12 hours. I get a text from some of his fraternity buddies who are like family to me. They come to all our events. We go to their weddings. They really are like family. There's nothing I wouldn't do for these kids. And one of them said, "Mr. McHugh, we're going to meet at Christopher's grave at 3:30. Can you join us?" And Sally and I were going to go there on his first anniversary at sundown and launch a Chinese lantern. And I said, "Sure." So I grabbed a hockey cooler with some beer and Gatorade and a box of cigars and headed up there. I pull in, there were wall-to-wall cars in this circular drive. There were 40 kids, 40 kids at his grave. And one of them, the first one that I saw, was Scotty. Now, if Chris hadn't prepared me, I would have been awkward. I would have felt, but because he'd prepared me, I was able to walk up to him and hug him and said, "Dude, Chris loved you, buddy. This wasn't your fault. We love you, because he'd wrestled with the guilt of it too, right?"
Sure.
So those are the things that I knew. It wasn't me making this up to put a Band-Aid on my wound, because I didn't want to make peace with Scotty. He also said, "Dad, Love should be like gliding a canoe through water. Now, do you ever think I would use an analogy of a canoe? My kid died in a canoe. There's no way I would have used that.
Mm-hmm.
So examples like that is why I know that it wasn't me coming up with these things. He said, I know it scares you to get this close to the other side. He's wrong, Trey. It doesn't scare me a bit. What scares me is losing the connection.
Sure.
Right. So how cool is it that he was wrong? And that's an affirmation to me, because they're not omnipresent, right? They're just on the other side. And he was wrong about it. I have no concerns about, the other side or getting close and back and forth or astral projection or travel, all of it, none of it. I welcome all of it. I'm working on it, So that was the first day. And that was since that day, January 3rd, 2017, to this day, two or three times a month, I get woken out of sleep at 3:00 in the morning. I come in here and he downloads and gives me info. He told me on October 16th, 2018, he said, I miss you too, Dad. We'll share this place, this incredible place. It'll be like crossing a shallow stream. You have to cross it by yourself, but I'm right on the other side. So it's just natural to walk across to me. And then you're in. You'll be on the other side, you and me. How's that for awesome? But not today. Today's for writing books and presentation. Carry the word, Pop. We're all behind you. Now, I don't know who we all are, but I'm pretty enthused about the response. I must be on the right trail, Trey.
Oh man, that is just amazing, right? I mean, to have that connection. You talk about thin places in your book, and I'm assuming that office is a thin place for you.
The office is a thin place. The grave where I moved them over and it's perfect is a thin place. I was there this morning. Now, I'm not like some old pathetic guy feeding pigeons, I was up early, 5, right? Decided to get my wife her Starbucks and my son's home from college and pick him up some breakfast. And I had some errands to do. And so I figured get the day started. And I wanted some time alone with my kid. So me and the dog go there. And even though it was early in the morning, 6:00 in the morning, I always light a cigar, mostly for the ceremonial part. I've always done it, so I'm always going to do it, right? And I know that that tobacco, you can, for some reason, sense it on both sides of the veil. The same way, I heard at one time I was at a funeral and we had provided bagpipes as somebody had asked us to do. And the piper said to me that the bagpipes are the only sound that can be heard on both sides at the same time. Now, I don't know if it's true, but I like it, so I took it, and that's part of what I believe. But so that grave is a thin place. I can get into a meditative stance, a shape in my head, and I look out to the woods, and I can imagine him coming through the gate at American Airlines, that glass gate when you're walking out the door in Chicago, and I can envision him, and like you were doing, I've said to him, buddy, I could sure use a sign. And dang, if a red cardinal just doesn't fly by and settle in a bush behind, and I know that's from him. I don't believe it. I don't think it. I know it's from him. He's not the cardinal. The cardinal's a sign.
Yeah. Well, when you ask for signs, majority of the time, is he sending you something?
Yes. Here's a cool one. So I do some stuff with Helping Parents Heal, this amazing organization. Anybody lost a kid, immediately go online, join Helping Parents Heal. They're just a phenomenal group of people. You have to be a parent who've lost a kid to be able to join or go on the Facebook or anything. So I had posted something that's in the book. It's called Empty Boots. It's a chapter, but I posted that. And I was just kind of explaining to parents that you're going to get these emotional landmines. They're going to hit and don't fight it. Let it roll over you, man. Go downstairs on the deck and cry. Do whatever you got to do, but they're going to happen. You can't hold it back, And so I explained that, and I explained the empty boots and walking in and seeing them, and thought, oh, good, Chris is home. Well, Chris wasn't home. He is home. He was on the other side. It was my other sons, my Williams boots. And it just took me back. And then, of course, I had a little mini breakdown and wrote that story. And later that day, I said to my son, I said, Will, it was during COVID. Let's go to the back nine, sneak out at the golf course. I mean, they know I'm doing it. They're okay with it. And let's play 9 holes, and whatever. So on the way out, Sherry Jewel calls me and said, "Hey, I just want to give you a call." She's a local medium. I'm doing something with her at a setting in Highland Park on my birthday, January 9th. And she said, I just gave a woman your name. I should have checked with you. Her son died. I go, you never have to check with me. Give out my name, my phone number, email, whatever. My email is jbmcquillen@gmail.com. You want to reach out, email me. Let me know. My website is joemcquillen.net. So she said, and I said, fine. She goes, oh man, Christmas will love that answer because he's here. We're on the phone. I was in my Jeep heading to the golf course. And she said, did Chris like whiskey sours? And I laughed. We went on a cruise the year before he drowned, and he was drinking whiskey sours. I was teasing him, busting his stones, And she said, were you asking for a sign recently? I said, yeah, I was. She said, because he's sending me Timberland boots and said, you'd know what that's all about. Now she's not privy to this website. She doesn't have access. That's a story I wrote and she has no idea about. And so generally I don't always get the signs when I expect them. I expected a cardinal. Instead I got, Timberland boots, right? Tim's. But he never lets me down. I always get a sign and I always smile. I know it's him.
Sure. I just think it's so powerful. I mean, I don't think we ask enough for signs, right? Like, I just think I don't ask enough, right? Like, I'm always in my mind all the time. Like, is that really a sign? I think, and I'm looking, sometimes you don't get them, right? Because you're looking too hard for them. Like, when I ask for a sign for like either a loved one that's passed or the universe saying, hey, look, show me a sign that I'm on the right path or that I'm doing the thing that I'm supposed to be doing. And it's like, I'm looking, all right, send me this and I'll look and I'll just, it won't come to me. It comes to me when I least expect it, when I'm not looking.
It also comes to you when they send it.
Mm-hmm.
You're not manifesting this sign. This sign is from the other side. So you might think you need it now, and they might think you need it in a half an hour, right? Mm-hmm. He sends me feathers. He sends me cardinals. He sends his mom's hawks, right? It's a different thing. I was in line at Starbucks one day, was trying to put a bunch of stuff together, and a song came on and it reminded me of him. It was his favorite song. I started crying, and a cardinal landed on the passenger mirror and was tapping on the friggin' window. Now, I'm telling you, as God is my witness, this happened. No BS, right? I don't, so we were doing a screenplay and a woman was assigned to us and she didn't last. And I'm not in any hurry to make a movie about this because I love the book. I love Audible. I love reading it. I love Kindle. And she said, well, I'm going to embellish this part. I go, stop. I would rather burn down your office before I let you embellish one thing. I said, I talked to my kid who's on the other side, and you're telling me you're going to embellish. You're out of your mind. And that was the end of the conversation. That was the end of our collaboration too. The thing is, there's so many miracles, and who was it Einstein said, there's 2 ways to look at life. One way is if everything's a miracle. The other way is if nothing's a miracle. And everything is a miracle. But you got to open your eyes. I was talking to a group of people one time at the Wilmette Theater, and it was my favorite part of all this, Trey, is the Q&A. When I do a presentation, I want half to tell my story. I'm Irish. Being Irish means you don't know how to tell a short story, So I'll tell my story, but then I want to hear the feedback and I want to help somebody connect. And this woman stood up and said, my sister died 5 years and I haven't heard anything. I said, really? What have you done? You can't sit on your couch and say, where's my sign? Mm-hmm. Right? What have you done to raise your level of consciousness? Do you meditate? Do you find a common place? Do you feel the thin place? Do you do that?
Yeah.
Do you, I always carry, this is sand from Siesta Key, which isn't sand. It's 99.9% quartz crystal. When my best pal, Alan, who lives in Sarasota, told me that, I said, yeah, I'm calling BS on this. And I researched, and dang, came down from the Appalachian Mountain 2,000 years ago on Siesta Key, just that beach. It's quartz crystal. And one of the most amazing experiences I ever had was on Siesta Key, where Chris walked through me, middle of the night after his wedding. I ducked out, ended up one night at Lido Key, the other at Siesta. Both were amazing. Chris came through both of those days. And it was just I could feel it was like an energy rush through my entire body. So if you ever get to the Gulf Coast and you get up by Sarasota at night, you go to Siesta Key, just sit there and walk and sit on the sand. He told me to come visit him one time. My sister Marcia, who was one of my favorite people in the whole world, was Christopher's godmother, and she was a real source of love for me. Big Irish Catholic family. She was like 15 years older than I was, and I just adored her. And she loved me even when I wasn't so lovable, right? And supportive and wonderful. I felt the same way about my boy. She just adored him. So when she was getting ready to transition, she had cancer, and she put up the fight and then said, "I'm done." And it was about a week before she was going to actually transition, just leave. And I was kind of hoping it would happen when I was there. And she said to me, "Honey," and she would said that, and it just warms me up. And she'd say, "Honey, I read your book. You did me," she said, "you gave me the greatest gift. I read your book, and I'm not afraid to die."
Wow.
That from somebody who was such a source of love, Trey. The following January, 11 months later on my birthday, I was out seeing a medium, Jill Nicole. I see a medium on my birthday. And she said to me, "Your son's here, but so is a woman with glasses, pretty. Her title is Aunt, Mother, Sister." I said, "Yeah, that's Marcia. That's my sister. She's my sister, Christopher's godmother, and was a mother to me in many ways. And she said to tell you, honey, thanks for the greatest gift."
Wow.
When she was getting ready to transition, Christopher told me, "Dad, the minute she steps across, I'll be there, I promise." And after she died, she transitioned February 6, 2019. Chris came to me and said, "I was there when Marcia transitioned, when crossed over." He said, "So was Jerry, Bobby, Billy, Pat, Marcia. We were all here." He said, "But then she had to go somewhere, Pop." He said, "Like a spa." And when she came back, she was younger than when I remember when I was a kid. So I had to process this. And this is why I'm not smart enough to figure this out on my own or to make this up. So she had died of cancer. She'd fought a fight for 4 years. And when she died, the cancer stayed with her body on this side, but the trauma crossed with her spirit. So she had to go somewhere, like a spa. What woman doesn't want to go to a spa? To shed this trauma and then rejoin the soul family. And then Andrew Anderson, not long after that, told me that, the circle's almost complete. And when I cross, it will be, because those were all the 5 of the original siblings of brother and sister. The other 5 in my family were my brothers and sisters in my heart, but they were cousins that my parents raised.
The circle is complete. What does that mean? Like, just because
that means
brothers?
The 5, all of the 5 siblings will have crossed over once I'm there. That the soul family circle will be complete.
The soul family circle.
How's that, man?
Well, speaking of mediums, like, what kind of research do you do? Like, because I know a lot of people listening to this right now. The one thing I love about you, Joe, is that you're a blue collar guy. Like, I'm a blue collar guy, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's important for us blue collar types to speak about this, right?
Right.
To share our stories, to show other people that it's okay to be curious about their spirituality, about the metaphysical. People that are listening to this right now who may be blue collar, or people that are interested or curious in the metaphysical, and or going to see a medium about a past loved one, like, what tips would you give them about, because there are people out there that take advantage of people that are vulnerable. Like, what type of research should they be doing to better prepare themselves for a more accurate reading?
And you know what, you here, I think the days of the charlatans are mostly gone, right? The raising the tables and the woo-woo. But remember, mediums are like hockey coaches or chefs, right? There's good ones, there's great ones, and there's not so great ones, right? Or people working on their craft, getting better. And a lot of it is the connection, I believe. Tony Russo is this great medium out of New York. I love her. My son comes to her kid all the time. She'll say to her kid, "You got to go to school," and she'll say, "Nah, Chris said I don't. He didn't go to school that much." And this Tony is just a hoot. This will be the second year I'm doing a medium session with her at the grave on my birthday on a phone, right? So like everything else, I just sent a buddy of mine that I played hockey with. I ran into him in a restaurant. He's going to get his his is going. I go, "Look, I got the guy," right? I sent him the doctor. It was a great doctor who did my hip, painless. I was shocked. That's how you do it. Know somebody who knows somebody. So, Helping Parents Heal, they have a list of approved mediums that are on their approved list. But I think it's everything else is, get a referral, find out from somebody who's happy with the results of somebody's medium session, and then go on and check on what it says on the internet. Sure. If somebody's rated them, whatever. But I think, the internet is your biggest fan, your biggest friend. It's going to help you. If there's somebody out there, I got to be honest, I did a past life regression. I was disappointed. It was okay, right? It was, but you know what? Sometimes you get okay. And what do you do? What do you do when you go to an okay restaurant? You don't go back. So I don't go back to that medium. That's the way it is. No. Maybe they had an off day, or maybe they just suck at what they do. But either way, I'm going to go where I know it's good. And I love going. My buddy Andrew Anderson's funny. He's a medium. He can't understand that I like going to different mediums. And I said, "Andrew, I don't want to eat Italian food every night. I like Greek, I like Chinese, I like Japanese, right? I don't want, so I don't always need your viewpoint of what Chris is telling you. Sure. But I think the biggest thing is, how do you find a good doctor? It's not the infomercial. It's somebody said, "I went to this doctor, he was great." So reach out to other people. There's a bunch of good websites where there's people who are involved, Helping Parents Heal, Helping Fathers Heal, grief after a loss, that kind of stuff. And seek out approved mediums who've been, I went to Lilydale, and it was an amazing experience. Conversely, I went to Sedona and I got very little. It was okay. I expected to be knocked off my horse. I wasn't. I went to Lilydale, which is the oldest spiritual community in the country. Unbeknownst to me, it was 45 minutes from where I grew up. 15 minutes from the second college I got booted from. And I went there and I couldn't believe the energy. And the whole place just vibrated with energy. Sure. I went to what's called the stump, where all the speakers would speak, and they still meet there. You're not allowed to stand on the stump anymore. And Inspiration Stump is called. I went there at 3:00 in the morning, and walking there, I couldn't believe the energy, the thousands and thousands of souls who go there to connect with people, and you just feel it. It was like electricity. I'd never experienced something, and crazy as it sounds, I got to Inspiration Stump, expected Chris to come through. Nada. Maybe he was bowling, who knows? But the energy of all those souls I felt. And it wasn't scary. It was really comforting. Sure. It was like I'm feeling electricity going through me right now. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're always, like you said, they're always around. It's just, we can't see them. They're on a different level, different frequency. They're always around. They're just like everything that I've read is, experience. It's just, they're living their own life on the other side, doing their own thing, evolving their own consciousness. It doesn't stop here. We carry that over with us. From what I gather from all the research that I've done, is that we get whatever consciousness that you have right now is what you carry over to the other side, and you continue to grow that consciousness, and either you come back immediately or you wait a little bit over there or whatever, from what I've, read from different cases. But they're out there.
What I've read is that it's your call.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what Chris said. My biggest fear, Trey, was that, I'm rounding third. I'm going to be 65. I'm not going anywhere soon, but I'm going, right? My biggest fear was him and I passing on the metaphysical superhighway, right? Him coming back. And Bob Olson's book cleared it up for me, that think about, we're all the same body of water, and the body is your soul, but each wave is your spirit, right? So there's different. So even if Christopher came back, the spirit is still going to be there. That was Christopher, 21 years old, my son, right? But my dad told mediums that he's done. He's not coming back, and he had a hard life, worked 16 hours a day, raised 10 kids, wonderful fella. But he wasn't coming. He was done. Not know how many lives he lived before. But I've also been told Chris and I shared other lives as siblings, which is why we were so comfortable with each other. And we were, man, we could just be. I was always his dad, right? But we could just hang. Sometimes we'd chat it up, listen to music, trade out off music. And sometimes we'd just quietly be, and that's the gift, I think something that's important for anybody who's out there who's feeling like this isn't fair, right? And I tell people fair is where you go to ride the merry-go-round and eat cotton candy. Fair don't figure into it. But God didn't take Christopher from me, right? And there was a great, powerful, painful book called The Shack, and it's a good movie. And in The Shack, God was explaining to a guy who's went to a thin place, who had lost his daughter in a horrible way. And God said, just because I work incredible good out of unspeakable tragedies doesn't mean I orchestrate the tragedies. And I think that's what people got to understand, that I think we have exit points. I think we have soul contracts, but I don't think God moves us around like pawns. And I don't think God took Christopher for me, for my past sins or for his amusement. There's a lot of things that I don't know about that I will figure out, maybe not till I cross over. Kim Russo, the happy medium, wrote a book where she explained that the third near-death experience always results in an exit point. And that's what happened to Chris. He had flipped a car going to a ranch. He was working on a ranch early in the morning, walked away with a scratch, fell down a 30-foot mine shaft, busted himself up pretty good, but came out. And then this one was why 3 ends the hall pass. I don't know. There's some deals out there that we're not privy to and probably won't be until we make the big step,
Sure. Yeah. Well, one of the amazing things your book, right? Like just reading your stuff, like you have a lot of like your appendix. I love your appendix. You talk about astral travel and that.
Yeah.
When did you like, how did you become interested in that? Like, can you astral project?
I'm working on it. Like remember, I'm literally, like ankle deep in this stuff, right? It's been going on 6 years, but this is the stuff I'm doing. There'll be more in book 3 because I have astral traveled, and I'm working on controlling it and setting it so it's just not like you wake up and from holy cow, that just happened, right? And that comes with raising your consciousness, the same thing. So astral travels on the agenda, past lives regressions on the agenda. Do I look like a guy that would write a book about astral travel and past lives regression? But I am. Anything that gets me closer to Christopher's world, I want in, and I'm going to figure it out.
Well, how are you?
I'll
doing
tell
that,
you guys.
though? Well, how are you? Give us a quick preview of how you do that, though. Is it lucid dreaming, or are you like using a technique? What is it
For the astral travel?
Yeah.
The astral travel is literally, I don't control it. The meditation, I set it in motion. The astral travel, it's like somebody takes me on a ride. It's only happened a couple times, so that's what I want to see somebody about astral travel. I want to sit down and find out the proper tools to astral travel. Same thing about past life regression. I know that it's true. I know that we were twin flames. I know that we were in other lives. People said up to 80. That's a lot of lives. But all of that, which is so cool because, I thought I was one and done after the first book, Trey. And then I was getting to the end and I was feeling a little melancholy because I thought, this is a great connection. And is this connection going to end with this book? And he came to me and said, we're not done yet, Pop. We'll be doing this until you cross, So I'm already, I'm knee deep in the third book with things that I hadn't approached yet. Remember, I walked in this thing cold, man. It was like there was a whole new game that it was like Quidditch. You know what I mean? Right? Nobody told me the rules, right? But I'm a fast learner, I'm a fast learner and I'm picking them up as I go.
So astral traveling through your meditation practices.
Yes. Yeah. I want to be able to control astral travel and call on it the way I call on Chris in meditation. Right. Same thing about seeing them, Trey. I've seen them twice. I have the gift. I'm not a medium. I don't want to be a medium. I don't want to see your grandmother. Right. I want to connect with my son, but I can hear him. So I'm clairaudient. I can sense him. I'm clairsensious. I can smell him. Right. I smell him and I can certainly feel him. So, but the seeing part, and Chris kind of told me, it may not be there. Now, fortunately, it's happened twice where I've actually had the vision of him. And no, wasn't me projecting a memory. It was a vision of him. Unbelievable. I tell you, he had white khakis rolled up, like a white shirt untucked, rolled up, tan. Man, he looked good, and he stood up to see me. I want to know more. I want to see him more.
Well, Bruce Mohan, I read I'm a big fan of his book. So I'm a big fan of Robert Monroe, Thomas Campbell. Thomas Campbell is a little bit too scientific guy for me. Like he's a physicist and I can barely understand his language.
A little dry and a little over my head.
Yeah. Robert Monroe, love his books, love his 3 books, but he's he leaves you wanting more. Everything's I don't know. It's just like everything is like a riddle or something.
Yeah.
But Bruce Mohan, I think that's how you say his last name, wrote like 3 or 4 books, and he was a student of Robert Monroe. And the one thing I can relate to him, he was an engineer, but he doesn't talk like that. But he was like, one thing that he taught me was like, if you use your imagination, which everybody thinks is, oh, it's just your imagination, but it could be so much more.
Yeah.
Is if you're like having a conversation with somebody in your imagination who is deceased, pretend like you're having a conversation with that person for the first 5 minutes. And then the next thing you know, the other person starts saying things to you that you're not pretending anymore. They're like giving you information from the other side, and you start fact checking that. And then you start realizing you're finding out information that the other side, that person is giving you information, and you go fact check it. And it's like real. Like you go talk to your Uncle Tom or something like that. And he's giving, you might pretend for the first 5 minutes. Oh, hey, Uncle Tom, what's going on? How are you? How's everything going on? Blah, 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 blah. Next thing you know, Uncle Tom is starting to say, hey, me and your dad used to do this when we were kids, or me and your dad used to do this, or me and your aunt used to do this. And you're like, I didn't know that. And you go back and you fact check it, man. Sometimes, that's what Tom Campbell is talking about, or that's what not Joe Campbell, Bruce Mohan is talking about when he's saying like, use your imagination as a tool to like connect with the other side. Because once you start making that connection, the veil starts thinning, because we are these superior beings. We're not just a human being, right? We are spiritual beings, and we can connect to the other side. And that's how you thin that layer, is through your imagination, through out-of-body experiences, through techniques, through meditation. I'm finding out more about who I am just through my meditation.
Because you want to, here's the thing. You remember the book, The Secret? Mm-hmm. Everybody thought it was a Gail's book, right? It's an amazing book. It's about manifesting. It's about connecting to the universe, but the one thing they say is you got to go first, right? And so you got to take that mustard seed of faith. You got to go first. And then, like you said, make that connection, make that, what I love about when people say this is new age, How's this? I thought I coined this phrase. We are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. That was told by Pierre Desjardins, who was born in 1881 and died in 1955. He was a Catholic priest. He was a philosopher, a paleontologist, and so we think all this is new, but it's been as long as the spirit. But you're right. The veil is thinner. So what you've got to do is, dude, walk up that high board and step off. You just got to step off, right? And let the universe take over. Let that person that wanted to connect to you take over.
Mm.
I get up and I walk in here and it takes over. And Chris tells me what he wants me to know, and I left the question of am I baddie a long time ago. And it's amazing, but you got to go first. You got to have that faith and you got to raise your level of consciousness. Yeah. You can't just wait for the miracle to happen.
Well, I'll tell you what pisses me off. It's like, because we are so worried about what society says is baddie. We're so concerned about what other people think is normal. Like, that's why we think we're so different, is because we worry about what the other person thinks. I mean, what is it? The Oracle of Delphi said,
yes,
know thyself. How can you know yourself if you're so worried about what your neighbor thinks? How are you going to know yourself if you're so worried about what other people think of you? You have to have your own experiences. Like when I say I want to know, I can't know something if I continue to read other people's material. Like I love reading other people's stories and their experiences, but
that's their stories.
Yes, I can't have my own experience if I don't sit down and meditate.
You know what I love? Two things that Rumi said. One is, and 16th century poet, right? 16th century Persian poet. That's how new age this stuff is. And he said, goodbyes are for those who love with their eyes. For those who love with their heart and soul, there's no such thing as separation. And another thing he said is half of life is lost charming others. The other half is lost going through anxieties caused by others. Leave this play. You have played enough. So I have always been blessed with knowing I was loved. Somebody once coined a phrase that said, the unassailable self-confidence that comes from a childhood insulated with love. I was loved in my family. I was the baby. I was loved. So and we were a blue collar family who moved to the suburbs, and the neighbors hated us. We had dogs, bicycles, football games would break out spontaneously in the front lawn. Neighbors hated us. So we never cared. We were this unit, and we only belonged to the tribe. So when somebody doesn't, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that don't get what I'm talking about, that's okay. Because who I want to talk to is that parent whose heart is broken and thinks it's over, thinks the connection's over, thinks that their child's energy is gone, right? That's who I care about. Somebody once asked me there was a woman from Dallas on a radio interview, and she said, what do you tell people that just don't buy this? I said, tell them to change the channel. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Listen to sports radio for all I care.
Mm-hmm.
That's not who I'm supposed to help. But Christopher is very adamant in telling me, Dad, you're the right kind of ambassador, because people can relate from where you're coming from.
Sure.
You're a boots on the ground kind of guy.
Sure.
And he gets on me when he doesn't think I'm doing enough service. I've been given this amazing gift of connecting with my son and knowing what's next. I get to know what's next, right? I've given this gift, but you got to give it away to keep it, right? If I try to hoard this like Midas, right, it's going to go away.
Sure.
I've got to use this gift that he's given me. You got to understand, I've been given this life beyond my wildest dreams. I married the woman of my dreams. Her and I've been married 30 years, way out punted my coverage on that cal. I got 3 wonderful kids. One's on the other side. I got to be Christopher's dad on this side for 21 years. And then I'll be his dad again in person on the other side when I cross over. So when people, try to feel sorry for me, I said, dude, don't feel sorry for me. I had the greatest job in the world. And if God taps me on the shoulder and says, sport, time to go, you're pitching next inning, then you're pitching tomorrow on the other side, then okay, I'm in, I'm not ready to go. I have work to do, but I'm not afraid of death. I know what's next, and it's pretty hip.
It's just another transition, man.
It's just another and an upgrade, bro. You're going into first class now.
Joe, man, I can't wait to talk to you again when that third book comes out.
Hey, send me your address after this. Email it to me, and I'll get you a copy of the first book sent out.
Oh,
and I'll steal Susan Geisman's line and sign it.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So, Joe, just for everybody, again, how can people connect with you?
Okay, so let's. My email is jbmcquillen, McQuillen @gmail.com. You want to connect? Send me an email. We'll connect. Right. This is an important part of what I'm supposed to do. This is my path. This is what God wants me to do. This is what Chris wants me to do. My website is joemcquillen.net. A lot of cool interviews. Your interview will be on there. A lot of cool interviews. And both books are on Amazon. And if you love them, please write a review. And if you don't, keep it to yourself,
Joe, man, I can't thank you enough for joining the show.
I can't thank you, Trey. I'm the one who's grateful to you.